Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. My 27 males, brother 33 male, and his fiancée want to have a big wedding. More than enough guests, the biggest venue they can get, a well-known band or singer for entertainment, and as much as they can splurge on food and decor. In short, as big a wedding as you can imagine. The problem is that they don't have enough to cover the expenses on their own. My parents said they'd split the cost halfway for the wedding. Initially, we all put in token shares as a contribution from the family. And since I'm planning on putting a down payment on a house soon, I don't have a lot of spare money, but I contributed what I could. However, a few months back, my brother and fiancé decided to push back their wedding date. They didn't give us much reason for it, but they did set a date for later. Once they announced that they would be delaying the wedding, our parents decided to use some of the money that was collected for the wedding. They used it to buy themselves a seaside cabana for vacationing. There is merit to this decision. It's a nice property, and now they are getting older. They probably want to spend most of their time having fun. Also, they probably figured that the period to the set date was enough for them to make back the money. But now the wedding is about 5 months away. The parents have realized that there's not enough money to cover the costs. So they came to me and asked me for a considerable share of money to help out. I said no. I had already given what I could, and I'm in the midst of settling a potential deal for a great house. It's in a nice neighborhood and has all the amenities I'm looking for. At the time of their asking, I was just about ready to put money for the down payment. I let them know my reasons, but they asked me not to go through with it and to help them out instead. My parents insisted that the wedding should be more of my focus, since it is about family and my brother shouldn't be embarrassed in front of his in-laws. Besides, a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event, but I was bound to come on a better house with time. I wasn't sold on their reasoning. I wanted that house, and I had scrimped and saved every penny for years now to buy a house because I needed some stability in life. So I asked them to sell their cabana instead. After all, they had bought it with the money that was meant to cover the wedding expenses. Besides, it wasn't me who volunteered to pay for my brother's wedding. They completely refused. They said they deserved the cabana because they had spent most of their life working and needed to enjoy some of their hard work now that they're in their retirement age. Finally, they said my brother would do the same for me. I'm not so sure about that. Anyway, my brother is a physician, and we all know that his profession earns well. And his fiancée earns well too. My parents have hefty retirement funds. I, on the other hand, am just doing my best to get by and position myself in life. I don't know why they expect me to foot his wedding bill. Given all those facts, I stuck to my no. My parents weren't happy with that. They called me heartless and a monster for wanting them to sell their only vacation property, and that they are in their retirement age and should not be taking their children's financial burdens on. Am I the a-hole? I think a house is a better investment than one day of your life anyway. Update. With all the hate I was getting from my parents, I decided to take the matter up with my brother. It was his wedding after all. I called him and let him know what I thought about the entire issue. I wasn't nice to him either. I bluntly asked him why he expected others, especially me, to foot his bill. And it was a heavy bill. He said that he had bought a new house and taken out a mortgage for it. He didn't want the burden of another loan on his shoulders. I was angry about that because I was also trying to get a house, but he had gotten one and was trying to rope me into added expenses I hadn't planned for. What was even more annoying was that they didn't need to have a big wedding. They could cut down their expenses to have a small, intimate wedding that made sense to them and their closest family and friends. Something they could comfortably plan for without breaking the bank. So, I told him to piss off. It was his wedding and he had to find a way to cater for it. I reminded him that we had already taken out tokens and that if he wanted to recover the money, he should at least put pressure on the parents who used some of it to buy a cabana. this was news to him. Apparently, the parents hadn't told him about their new vacation property, just that they couldn't come up with their share and so they'll get me to pitch in instead. And he got mad about the entire thing. The parents, who had also been trying to keep it a secret, were mad at me for letting the cat out of the bag. Now they are all fighting with each other about the money. It got a little ugly. There's been name-calling and some threats said. My brother has vowed to never talk to them again if they don't make this right. My parents have called him insensitive since a vacation property is a better investment than one day that very few of their guests will remember a few years down the line. I had said the same thing before about my potential house, but they had ignored me. I backed out of the fight because it didn't concern me so much. I will let them figure it out. Meanwhile, the wedding date is drawing closer and closer. But at least they are not asking me to pay out more money than I need to. Even better, while they have been going off at each other, I finally bought the house and I love it. OP, I didn't think your plan was going to work out as well as it did, but I'm glad it worked out for you. You deserve the house, and your parents were a little insensitive when they asked you to give up on a house you've had your eyes on for a long time, just so your brother can have an extravagant wedding that he desires but doesn't need. I love how you stood your ground and gave them each other to fight while you enjoy your new beautiful house. Brilliant. Story 2. My daughter is going to be 16 in 4 months, and we got the last spot and a venue for the time being. It is a beautiful mansion type of thing with a big garden. My daughter is very excited. My brother has a fiancée of 3 years. They have 2 kids. They were not planning a wedding till he got offered a job overseas, and then getting married is the best for visa issues. He leaves in 9 months. He went to the same venue and his fiancée fell in love with it. They inquired, but the earliest spot would be 2 days before they moved. Fiancée was devastated, and I consoled her. Come to yesterday, my brother invites us over for dinner, and after a while asks us if we would be willing to switch locations. He showed us a hotel that was admittedly very charming. He said that he would even throw in a night for me and my wife at the spa as a thank you. But I shot that idea down fast. I had been planning this party for over a year, and Sweet 16 is a big deal. It has a color theme and it wouldn't be the same at that hotel. The girls would have a suite and my brother promised to cover her suite costs, but I just prefer the other venue. He didn't scream at me, but he was very bummed and treated me quite coldly for the rest of the night, as did his fiancée. When we left, my wife said we could have at least asked our daughter and that the way I said no was very rude. But I don't see it. An emergency on their part doesn't constitute one on mine. Am I the a-hole? OP, you planned this ahead and your daughter has been looking forward to having her birthday party at that venue. Your brother asked and you said no. That should be case closed. You shouldn't be obligated to change venues, but I can see why they asked. And as a dad, you were looking out for your daughter's best interest as you should. That said, you can still pose the switch to her in a way that she wouldn't feel guilty whichever she decided. As for your brother, he was understandably bummed and will hopefully get over it as he enters this new exciting phase in his life. Hopefully, your daughter's birthday goes on without a hitch. Now for some comments. You're the a-hole, OP. You have no idea if your daughter would be upset or not, because you made the decision for her. In effect, you told her what she should value more, her own consumption over doing a big favor for a family member. You never gave her the option to form her own opinion because you've signaled what you think the right decision is. It's just as bad as if you had decided to switch venues without consulting his daughter. Really, the fact that you and your brother thought you guys could work this out amongst yourself without involving the actual person the party is for is pretty telling. Both are big milestones. Why should you take something from your child because your brother can't be bothered to plan things? He obviously doesn't think much of the marriage if he can't even be bothered to plan a nice wedding without trying to steal a party from his niece. Nah, but I agree with your wife. It couldn't hurt to show your daughter and see if she's open to switching. Tell her you already said no, so it's not on her if she doesn't like the hotel. but you wanted to be honest and transparent with her since she's growing up. It shows her that you want her involved in decisions that involve her. And if your brother asks, you can honestly tell him you're doing what your daughter wants for her birthday and she takes priority. Story 3. Backstory. My dad is the type to constantly be in and out of new relationships. Lately, they've lasted around a year. I find it exhausting to constantly be involved with new women and have expressed that I don't care what he does, but I'd like to not be involved. Last night, my fiancé and father had a conversation where we all agreed to place boundaries on the relationship between us and his girlfriend. This one's been about 8 months. Namely, that we would only have to be around or interact with her when it had to do with my sister, who is about 8 years younger. This is especially important due to our closeness in age with his girlfriend. My fiancé has run into people she's gone to high school with that happens to be friends with this woman. While we've been visiting my father and it's extremely uncomfortable. I'm getting married in a month. My fiancé is having a surprise bridal shower thrown for her on Saturday. Today, my dad texted me informing me that his girlfriend would be his date for the wedding and all the wedding-related events, including that she would be attending the bridal shower that neither my dad nor my sister or I would be, thrown for my fiancé. I told my dad that we would actually appreciate it if he would attend the wedding solo so that he could focus his attention on being the father of the groom, as opposed to on his new girlfriend, especially since none of the family have met her yet in the 8 months they've been together. And he's the type to likely go around introducing her to everyone, which I think is inappropriate to do for the first time at my wedding. He flipped. He's livid. My fiancé and I think it's a perfectly reasonable request given his history and the boundaries we agreed to last night. He thinks he needs to fill the void besides him, and us asking him to attend alone is the ultimate slight. He refuses to come without her, so we will probably cave and allow her to come. But really, am I the asshole? Edit. We did not ask him to pay for anything, but he has offered to pay for the cake. Not the a-hole OP, especially since you tried to set expectations and boundaries the other night and it sounds like your dad even agreed. But today, your dad just ignored all of them. I think in the end, you will need to decide if having your dad at your wedding is more important than avoiding this girlfriend. In 20 years, you might not remember her name regardless of if she attends or not, but you definitely remember if your dad wasn't there.